What's up, everybody? Welcome to Human Innovation Tarot. My name is Eddie with Imagine Life Development Center. And in this reading, I'm going to be taking a look at relationships. In fact, this whole month is going to be all about relationships. It's the second month. 2 is the number of partnerships. Obviously, it's February, known for Valentine's Day, all the things. And so also just put a poll up on my channel as well. It seems like most of you guys are interested in love and relationships right now. So I will definitely be putting an emphasis on relationships. So stay tuned for a slew of readings that I have planned to record and upload. So this reading, what we're going to look at is we're going to start off by kind of looking at what we need to do to position ourselves for the love that we desire. And so as opposed to starting off with just, predictive reads, which I will be doing those. So again, keep your eyes open for those. That stuff doesn't really matter if we don't want to put the cart before the horse. And as humans, we have a tendency to just get stuck in our unconscious patterns of doing the same thing and expecting a different result, which is the definition of insanity, right? So to the best of my ability and to the best of my power, I would like to bring more conscious awareness to our power, who we are, and who we need to become, what we need to change, what needs to transform, what do we need to let go of, what do we need to empower, what do we need to learn. Bringing awareness to the parts of ourselves that have been keeping us in powerless cycles of not getting what we want. So if you're watching any of the relationship readings, I'm assuming that you're probably not where you want to be in your relationship. Now, I could be wrong, but I don't know too many people who are watching romance readings, at least tarot readings, tarot love readings, who are in a fulfilling, happy relationship, right? In fact, I feel that if anything, you'd be too busy enjoying that relationship as opposed to watching readings about it, right? And I hope that that's true. Obviously, I hope that you guys find the love of your life, you find the love that you deserve, you find the love that you've been seeking and desiring, and then you won't have to come and watch, tarot love readings anymore. So with that being said, if you're new to my channel, I would greatly appreciate it if you would take a moment while I have your attention, hit the like button, completely free for you. Takes 2 seconds. Just do it. 2 seconds. Just do it. 2 seconds. Just do it. Subscribe to the channel if you find this content beneficial, and spread this. Share this channel and spread what I'm doing here, because this is more than just tarot, okay? This is more than just predictive tarot readings. Yes, I do some of that, but there's more at stake here. It's about change. It's about transformation. It's about us becoming the divine, higher version of us, the best version of us that we can become, so that we can live the life that we deserve. And that takes conscious effort. It takes conscious effort. We can't just turn off the YouTubes and go to sleep and wake up and just find ourselves back in the Groundhog's Day monotonous unconscious life, because we've been habituated to that life for so long. We're so used to doing the same things, running on the rat wheel, that it's just kind of programmed into our nervous system. It's a habit. And so we want to break the habit of doing the same thing. We want to break the habit of being less than our best selves. And we want to become our best self. And that takes, at least until we create a new habit or form a new habit, it creates focus. It requires focus. It requires effort and intention, right? So this reading is all about what do we need to do to attract the love that we're seeking? Who do we need to become to attract that into our life, okay? So also, just one other thing, hit the bell notification, turn the notifications on. I would love to have you guys come join me for a free live tarot reading, especially if you're new to the channel Would love to see you at one of my upcoming live readings. All right, so let's see where the divine wants to take us. What do we need to know? Who do we need to become? What do we need to change in order to attract the love that we're seeking? And even if you just started dating somebody, or you're broken up with somebody, or you're in separation with somebody, it doesn't matter. Okay? This reading will apply to everyone, whether you're single, whether you're with somebody, whether you're waiting for somebody. It will apply to everyone. Now, the kick or the key to this is understanding what we need to do. So this isn't about the other person, just to be crystal clear. This is not about if you're dealing with somebody, you're waiting for somebody, or it's anything having to do with a past person. This is not about any other person. This reading is all about you. Okay? What changes do we need to make within ourselves? Because again, you can watch tarot readings for the rest of your life that are predicting this and that and this and that, that's like 99% of tarot readers on YouTube making predictions about when love is going to happen. Is a past person going to come back, or are you getting a new person? But few people are actually having the experiences that they desire. So it's not very beneficial, right? It's not beneficial to just keep watching readings and not getting a result. At least in my opinion, I would rather get the result and not have to keep watching readings. I'd rather actually live life and enjoy life with a person instead of hearing about it conceptually. There's one more card that wants to come out. There we go. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. So we're going to start here. Let me get a few more. Let me just get, we're just going to go ahead and get several of the cards out on the table. I'm just realizing too that my camera's messed up. I'm a Virgo. I notice these things. So I'm going to have to deal with that. All right. Well, the divine's got a lot to say. Yeah, they got a lot to say. And then we have that. I'm gonna have to make room. All right, let's get all these slid over here. But that's good. It's good. It's good to be called out. It's good for us to have feedback from the infinite source of truth. So we actually know what we need to do. What we need to change. All right. Now, obviously, this reading is not going to resonate for everybody. So take it as it resonates. Maybe some of it. There should be something here. There should be at least one nugget of truth here for everybody. Maybe not all of it, but... All right, I'm feeling there's probably two or three cards that want to come out of this deck if they'll come out here. Okay, there we go. All right. Yeah, it's not all getting on the camera here. So it's all right. We'll go through it. So starting up here at the top row, we're going to start with the cards we got. So this card is Prisoner. The next card is Karma. So essentially, you know, the tarot equivalent would be Eight of Swords. We have Justice there. Chaos in any form. So the next card, we have the Mask, and then we have the Miser. So we'll start here with the Prisoner. So the Prisoner energy, the divine is basically challenging us. There's several energies attached to this card. One is the obvious overthinking energy of, you know, when it comes to our past relationship experiences, because that's essentially what everybody overthinks, essentially. Very few people, in fact, I don't know anybody, I've never met anybody that overthinks about the future. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't times where somebody doesn't experience some degree of anxiety about the future. So, for example, let's say you just meet somebody and you go out and you really like them and you go out on a first date. Then, you know, you're super anxious because you're thinking like, oh, you know, what do they think about me? Or do they like me? And will they want to go out with me again? Will I get to see them again? Will I have a second date with them? What's going to happen next? That element of surprise, right? The unknown, the uncertainty of not knowing what's next. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about, you know, kind of the infatuation, excitement phase of a new relationship. This energy is the overthinking about the things that have happened to us in the past. Betrayals, losses, disappointments, you know, all that kind of stuff. And unfortunately, too many people allow their past to define their present as well as their future. Too many people allow their trauma to influence and define their character. And so inevitably what ends up happening, and I made there's a video on my playlist, and I think it's called Love Didn't Hurt You, I think is the name of it. You can go watch that video. But we believe, right, the narrative, the ego, edging God out, the mind, the brain, essentially is here to protect us, not to make you happy. That's the job of the brain and the ego. It's just here to protect you. And so the brain is constantly collecting feedback about experiences that you're having to try to, you know, in an attempt to determine how it's going to keep you safe in the future. And so if you've had disappointments and pain and betrayals and loss in the past, and, you know, even maybe with your parents, you know, maybe you grew up in dysfunction. Maybe, you know, dysfunction is how you define love. You've never actually experienced care, being nurtured, you know, being, you know, safe, seen, heard, and understood, and, you know, your needs mattering. Maybe you came from complete dysfunction, and dysfunction is all you know, and abuse and toxicity and all that. So that's your blueprint. That's your definition. So your brain has defined love by toxicity, and so that's kind of, you know, all you know to relate to. Well, all of that is based on fear, and anything that's not based on unconditional love or truth or the divine, because, you know, as the Bible says, and I'm not quoting this to sound religious, but in the Bible, there's that verse that says God is love, right? And so forget your concept of religious God, but if we were just to take the concept of unconditional love, right? The divine being the unconditional source of love. Fear and love cannot coexist. Perfect love casts out all fear. So any part of our past, any part of our blueprint, any part of, you know, our definition of love that is rooted or based in fear, dominance, control, toxicity, you know, regret, any kind of that kind of stuff, right? That keeps us in prison. And that imprisonment shows up as a form of self-preservation. And self-preservation is fight, flight, or freeze in our nervous system. So while we're in the prison of fear, we will never be able to experience love. And our blueprint and our definition, the way that we relate to love, is going to be very disempowering to us. Because while intellectually and in somewhere inside of our heart and our soul, we have that desire, it's like, yes, I want love. And you can tell me that all you want. You can look me in the eyes and say, but I want love. I want love. And you can feel it. And somewhere deep inside of you, you have a craving and a desire for love, connection, relationships, and all of that. Excuse me. But that doesn't matter, because our conscious mind is not what's running the show. It's our subconscious programming that's running the show. So essentially this energy tied to the prisoner is, one, it's talking about what we habitually focus on. And what we focus on is typically what we tend to overthink about, right? Because fear has us, keeps us in this feedback loop of questioning ourselves. And there's lots of reasons why we question ourselves. I'm not good enough. I suck. I'm a failure. I'm ugly. I'm not worthy. I don't deserve love. I don't deserve to be happy. You know, whatever that feedback loop is of self-defeat, of powerlessness, whatever the story is. And we focus on that. And sometimes it doesn't have to be even the words we say. It's just the fact that we're focused on the past experience. And so, again, you know, where our focus goes, energy follows. So if we're focused on past pain, past disappointments, past heartbreaks, past betrayals, and all of that, then we're sending energy into the past that is essentially making it's feeding, you know, the past. It's feeding that image. It's feeding that memory. It's feeding that pain. It's feeding that betrayal, that loss, that disappointment. And so that thing becomes enormous. It becomes large until it becomes so large that it's all we can see. It's the only thing in front of us now. And we're so blinded by it because we keep sending so much energy to it that's essentially what consumes us. It's consuming all of our energetic resources. Because, you know, we're all operating all the time as the magician. You know, the magician card, you have all the tools and resources you need to create. Well, we're all creating all the time, whether you want to or not. It's just, are you creating the reality that you want to experience? Or are you creating the reality that you don't want to experience? You're creating one or the other. Because that energy is going somewhere. Every day that you wake up, every moment that you're awake, you're using your energy. You're focused on something. And again, whatever you're focused on in that moment, you're sending energy to that thing. You're expending energy in that thing. Well, when it comes to love and it comes to romance and it comes to your experiences with said love and romance, where are you focused? Because whatever you're focused on, that's what you're feeding and giving your energy to. In other words, that's what you're contributing to creating. And so the divine wants us to start to become more aware, more self-aware, more consciously aware of where we're sending our energy. Because if we're not sending energy, or let me put it to let me say it this way. If we're not using our energy to get free of the prison, then we're using our energy to stay in the prison. And the divine can't assist us in receiving the partnership, the love, the relationship that we desire, nor can we acquire it without the divine. So with or without the divine, it doesn't matter. As long as we're in this prison, you're not gonna get the love and relationship that you desire. So this is the first step. And I could go and go and go and go and go and go and go. But I don't want this to turn into like a 5-hour reading. So I'm going to have to just kind of like touch and go on each one of these points, even though there's a lot to be discussed. But I could spend probably at least another hour just on that first energy right there, this first card. And there's a reason that it was the first card out. Because so many of the problems that we have are due to self-imprisonment. In other words, they are self-sabotage. They're self-imposed, meaning we are the ones who are doing this to ourselves. You know, 95, maybe 90, between 95 and 98% of the issues surrounding our current circumstances when it comes to relationships have to do with the way, with ourselves, our thinking, our relationship to ourselves, our relationship to love, and understanding our patterns and all these things. Very, very rarely does it actually have to do with somebody else because, like, again, if you're looking for love, then you're probably not even with the person. And then when you find a person, that person, is just there. And because of the projection that we start to project all of this stuff onto this person because we place them in this container called love and romance. So if you go out on a date and it's not a business meeting, right? Like if you're, I don't know, you go to work and you meet Paul or Sally, you've worked with Paul or Sally for years. There's nothing romantic there. Paul or Sally, like, hey, you want to go out to lunch? Like, yeah, it's just work. And because you haven't placed Paul or Sally into the container of romance, you haven't categorized them, right? Or compartmentalized them into love and romance, they don't trigger all of the stuff. They don't trigger all those patterns. But let's say you meet somebody, wherever you meet them, however you meet them, but it's under the context of love and relationships, that engages that part of your brain because your brain's like, oh, this isn't Paul and Sally from work that I don't give a crap about. This is this person. And this person I met under the pretense, under the guise of romance. So now I'm going to treat this person different. And this person is going to trigger things in me that I may be unaware of. And it has nothing to do with them. Just the very, very simple act of your mind having an archetype, if you will, something to project love onto will trigger the patterns within us, right? So again, there's so much tied to this prisoner card. And this is step one. We've got to get out of our own way if we're going to attract the person into our life, but attracting someone is only half the battle, right? It's one thing to attract a person into our life. It's a second thing to keep them. Two totally different situations that require two totally different sets of skills, but the one common denominator that will stay the same throughout all of it is you and me, ourselves. So this card, really, this energy attached to this really has to do with, again, becoming aware of all the ways that we self-sabotage, we imprison ourselves, the negativity, all the stuff around our past, all of our unconscious patterns when it comes to relationships and how we sabotage those relationships, all that stuff, okay? This card is, the energy here is saying, hey, we got to start to become aware of it. We can't run from it anymore. We can't lie about it anymore. We can't hide from it anymore. Sometimes we have to be courageous enough to call ourselves out. And I don't mean that in a mean or derogatory way. I'm not saying beat yourself up, because that's a lot of the reason why people are in this prison energy already, because you're so hard on yourselves. You beat yourself up. I'm not talking about being, a perfectionist and beating yourself up and more guilt and shame and all. I'm saying calling yourself out in an empowering way through love and saying, hey, okay, I know I have a problem and I've had this problem, but I haven't wanted to look at it because I feel guilty for having it. But now I'm going to look at it because I don't want to live in this guilt. I want to live in this pattern controlling me and dominating my life and robbing me of my happiness and my fulfillment and what's possible for me. That's what I'm talking about. Just the courage to confront the pattern. Okay. So let's move on, because I will stay on that one card if I don't stop myself. The next card is we have karma, and this is really just the justice energy. So, and it's very simple. The energy attached to this is about, have we learned the lessons from past relationships? Have we learned our lessons? Because we've all gone through, the cause and effect of every relationship we've ever been in. And if we're not actively and consciously learning from the relationships that we've gone through and the experiences we've had in those relationships, then we're doomed to repeat that cycle all over again. We're doomed to go around the mountain. right? And that's why, you know, you date a certain person and they have a set of problems. And then that relationship fails and it ends. And then somebody new comes along. It's a different person in a different flesh suit. They're, you know, they got a different name, they got a different look. But all of a sudden you find yourself in a very similar relationship pattern with this person. And then that relationship ends, and then somebody new comes along, somebody else. They got a different name, a different flesh suit, and, you know, you find yourself going through yet another relationship that's very similar than the two other relationships that happened before that one. So next thing you know, it's like, wow, it doesn't really matter who I end up in a relationship with, because the patterns in these relationships, no matter who it is that I'm with, are all the same. And so that's what this is talking about. And again, obviously this energy is contributing to the first energy we talked about. So all of these energies are they're intertwined here. They're all feedbacking off of each other. So as we begin to untangle the knots of whatever energy that's on the table, at least up here, you know, we haven't got to these other ones yet, but for sure, these first 5 cards, as we begin to untangle those knots, it's like dominoes. It's like when you deal with this, it's like you knock that domino over, and then it's going to start knocking all these other ones over. So for each one of these, you know, challenges, I guess, that the divine is wanting us to become aware of within ourselves, as we begin to untangle those knots, then these other knots start to untangle by themselves because they're all connected. So it's a good thing, right? So this karma energy is, have you actually learned the lessons from your past relationships? And if you haven't, then the divine is saying now is the time. Now is the time to, again, bring awareness to the things that have not worked. In other words, we have to get out of denial. We have to stop pretending and stop not wanting to look at things. It's like, oh, I don't want to think about that. Oh, I don't want to think about that. Oh, I don't want to look at that. Oh, I don't want to remember that. I don't want to think about it. It's like, and I get it. It's not fun. It's not fun to have to look and focus at a problem that has caused us pain, or something that we feel guilty about, or we have shame or regret, or there was a betrayal. Like, there's lots of reasons why emotionally, you know, we wouldn't want to go and look at those things. We don't like to sit in discomfort. And that's a problem. That's a problem, because until we have the courage to embrace some degree of discomfort, to work through our own internal issues, then we're just going to get more reasons to be uncomfortable, because the next person is just going to cause us more pain, loss, betrayal, hurt, and then the next person. It's like, so in the long run, we're disservicing ourselves, because we're just going to keep bringing more and more long-term pain. Whereas, you know, it might be uncomfortable for a small amount of time to have to, you know, get present and actually look at what's going on within us. But the long-term effect of doing so will bring pleasure and fulfillment. So it's like, you know, what makes more sense just from a logical standpoint? Does it make more sense to avoid temporary discomfort for long-term pain? Or does it make more sense to embrace temporary discomfort for long-term pleasure? Right? So that's what this card is all about. It's saying, hey, have you learned the lessons from your past? Are you aware of what's happened? Are you aware of your part in it? Are you learning, or are you in denial? You just go through something, it doesn't work out, it hurts you, and then you just shut it out, you forget about it, you move on to the next thing, you medicate, whatever the pattern is. So, you know, I guess a second energy that we could, or a second word rather, not an energy attached to this, is really just saying, hey, we need to get out of denial. Because justice is truth, ultimate truth. We need to embrace the truth. We need to get out of denial. And have we learned the lessons that we need to learn? Now, chaos is the next energy. Chaos is the result of not doing the work. Plain and simple. There's not a profound message in the chaos. It's just essentially the divine saying, hey, if you don't want to continue to experience the chaos and the discomfort of the energy inside of you and the chaos of the relationships that come to you, then it's time to have the courage to face the discomfort. Otherwise, we're just, by being in denial of the discomfort and avoiding painful situations, and more so avoiding looking at ourselves and avoiding doing the work, our personal growth and spiritual growth, whatever, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritual, all the growths, avoiding doing the work on ourselves to become a better us so we can have a better that, then we're just calling more chaos into our lives. Now, the fourth energy is mask. And so there's a whole slew of energies attached to this. So let's just run through them really quick. Any form of dishonesty, whether you've been dishonest with yourself, whether you've been dishonest with others, whether you've lied to yourself or you've lied to others, whether you're betraying yourself, whether you betrayed others, any form of you hiding who you truly are to please others, whether you're people pleasing, whether it's to fit in, whether it's to mold yourself and shape yourself and conform to the standards of your family, your traditions, your religion, your society, your culture, your country, your state, your children, whatever, any form of inauthenticity, of not being true to you, to please or to get, or any of that. What we don't realize, it's a form of indirect manipulation. In other words, if you're disingenuous or you conform to people please your family, for example, right? Let's say you come from a family that was maybe very strict, or maybe they were very religious and they had certain expectations for you. Okay. And I'm guilty of this because, my family wasn't super strict, but I came from a religious background. So there were expectations. There were religious expectations. And, because I wanted to be accepted by my family and I wanted to be accepted by my religious friends and all of that, the world that I was in, the church that I was in and all of that, I was never true to myself. And that's a form of manipulation because we're pretending to be something that we're not in order to get our needs met. And I'm not saying that because it's a form of manipulation, I'm not implying that means that you're a bad person, that you're malicious, that you're evil, or any of that. A lot of the times we don't even know that we're doing this stuff. But it doesn't change the fact that it is a form of manipulation because we're doing something to get people to respond to us in a way where we get something out of it. And in this case, we get our needs met. As opposed to owning ourselves and being true to ourselves and taking the mask off and saying, hey, this is who I am, love it or leave it. But this is who I am. And I'm not saying it's easy because if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. So the mask is anything having to do with betrayal, lies, dishonesty, deceit, hiding, being fake, being a fraud, being superficial, anything that we do that is not true to ourselves or not in our highest good. And we do it in a way to where we are either trying to hide or suppress parts of ourselves that we don't want other people to see or have to experience because those are the parts that, we feel ashamed of or we're guilty or, it's like, hey, we've done, we've all kind of done some things, right? Apologize for the interruption there. We've all done things in our past. We've all done things that we're not proud of. Okay. And it doesn't matter. We're not here to have, there's no comparison. We're not out here to compare our sins. Okay. So it doesn't matter. We all have things that we're not proud of, or we all have insecurities that feel vulnerable to us. We feel like, well, if somebody saw this part of me, then they wouldn't want me. They wouldn't love me. They wouldn't like me. Even if that's not true, even if that's an illusion, even if that's just a limiting belief that we have about ourselves, the prisoner energy, which a lot of the times it is, right? Somebody might absolutely love those parts about you, because people, perfectionists, and, the patterns, all the things that are going on inside of us, where the self-loathing, the self-criticism, picking ourselves apart, all the things that we do to brutalize ourselves, to beat ourselves up, and finding every little thing that's wrong with us, right? Well, I don't like this, I don't like that. Like when I grew up, I hated myself. I did. Like I literally hated myself growing up. I thought I had this really ugly, long nose. I hated the way my voice sounded. I hated the way that I looked. I hated my hair. I thought I looked like an idiot. I thought I looked like a dork. Like I found all of these reasons to beat myself up. Like I found anything and everything wrong with me. I didn't like my ears are too big. Like I would just find anything at all about my body and my looks and my voice and my personality. I would find, and I would just make stuff up because it wasn't true. It was just my opinion. And it wasn't even a real opinion. It wasn't based on facts. It wasn't based on evidence. It wasn't based on going out and getting doing a survey with a test group of 100,000 people or something, or even 1,000 people, or even 100 people, or even 10 people. It was all me. Just me hating me for reasons I didn't even understand why. I just had, I grew up with irrational fear. Like I just came out of my mother's womb with irrational fear, and that irrational fear, maybe with some degree of my parents, imperfection, imperfect parenting skills, which there is no such thing as a perfect parent, by the way. No one's parents, even the best parents on the face of the planet, a mixture of all of that affected my self-confidence, my self-esteem, and the way that I raised, It's like we're all predisposed to certain weaknesses. We all come into life with a kryptonite. Every single one of us. We all come into life, we all have a kryptonite. We all have a superpower like Superman, and we all have a weakness, we have a kryptonite. And my kryptonite at a very young age was my self-esteem and my confidence. And unfortunately, but also fortunately, when I was 16, I was on my way to church with my girlfriend, her sister, and a close guy friend of mine. We got hit by a drunk driver, and my girlfriend died, her sister died, and me and my friend, we ended up on life support. I should be dead. And as a result of that experience, when I healed and I recovered and I got back on my feet, I learned to play drums. And then as I became a musician and I started a band and I kind of took on the persona of rock star, it's like Eddie the drummer was my mask. Eddie the drummer made me somebody, made me something. It gave me a mask that I could wear to hide my insecurities. And it worked out really good for me. I got a lot of attention. People thought I was a badass. I got attention from the opposite sex. I started getting girlfriends. It was like all of a sudden I was somebody. But behind the mask was still me, the real me. I still had to go to sleep every night with the guy who still hated himself. Now, you can live in denial for a while, which I did. You can turn it off and you can live in denial and you can just live with the mask on. But eventually, at some point in your life, the universe is going to come in and is going to rip that mask away from you. They're going to take the divine will take the pacifier away from you. And for me, that didn't happen for a very long time. I got married, and then it wasn't until after a 10-year marriage, when my ex-wife left me from her best friend of 17 years, that the mask of the past was completely ripped off. And I went through 9 months of absolute fucking turmoil. Like a dark night of the soul that even thinking about it makes me feel like anxious. I was suicidal. I wanted to die. I lost 30 pounds in 30 days. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't function for 9 months. It was literally the worst. It was the worst agony I've ever been through. Like, I could go through 1,000 drunk drivers hitting me and almost killing me situations. As bad as that was, it paled in comparison to the dark night of the soul. That's why it's called the dark night of the soul, not the dark night of the heart, not the dark night of the mind. It's called the dark night of the soul. Because when you are brought to your knees, you're brought to the end of yourself on a spiritual level. There's nowhere to run, there's nowhere to hide, and there's nothing that you can do to medicate yourself from it. There's no drinking, there's no sex, there's no drugs, there's no toxic relationship. Like, it's all taken away from you. You have no pacifiers, no outlets, nowhere to turn, nowhere to run. The divine forces us to confront it in those moments where we go through like the death card in tarot or the tower in tarot, right? So the divine is here saying, I don't want to have to do that. I don't like having to come in and rip the mask off of you, because it's destroying you. It's hurting you more than it's doing you any good. But if we allow ourselves, if we live in the illusion of hiding behind the mask for long enough, then I can guarantee you at some point that dark day is going to come where the divine is going to rip it away and saying, hey, you've relied upon this too long. You know, it's not normal for a 40-year-old person to have a pacifier. It's not normal for a 15-year-old to be walking around with a pacifier, or a 20 or a 30. It doesn't, you know, like, unless you're like 1, 2, 3, 4 years old, you know, even maybe even 4 years old might be pushing it. You know, 1, 2, 3 years old, I would say, okay, if I saw a 3-year-old with a pacifier, I'm not going to think much of it. But if you show me your kid's like 5, 6, 7 years old and it's, you know, they got a pacifier still, that's a problem, you know, in my opinion. Like that, there's something, they should be grown out of that by now. Well, metaphorically speaking, that's what this mask is what we hide behind. It's our pacifier, the thing that we rely upon to hide or to present a side of ourselves, a false representation of ourselves, so that we can be liked, so that we can feel like we can get the love that we're not capable, that we don't believe that we're capable of getting if we were just being ourselves. And that's the lie. That's the illusion. That's the prisoner energy. We have to get out of the lie that being who we really are is actually worthy of love, as opposed to being this false or fake thing that we think we have to be to get love. All right, so got to move on. The next card is Miser. So this next card, Miser, is tied actually here to this Risk card underneath. And I know we haven't moved down here, but now it's like it's opening up now for us to talk about these things. We have Death here. Everything that I just said about the Mask card and this death energy is about transformation. There are things that are no longer serving us. They're no longer serving you. They're no longer serving me. They're not serving us. And if they do not die, then we can't thrive. We will not find that person. We will not have that relationship. And at best, we'll just keep going around and round and round and experiencing this chaos and this turmoil and, disappointments, betrayals, losses, unfulfilling experiences, essentially, as opposed to getting the thing that we really want. Death is necessary. Death is a necessary spiritual component to spiritual life. And the spiritual love that we're all longing for in the form of human connection and relationships is on the other side of a spiritual death. Spiritual death to what? Death to all of this old stuff. The lower versions of ourselves, the lower vibrational parts of ourselves, the ego controlling us and running the show, our lack of awareness of our patterns and our beliefs and all the things that we've outgrown. We have to become aware of them, and we have to let those things go. We have to let them die so that we can rise up as the phoenix from our own ashes, so to speak. So the miser energy, just to take a step back really quick, is about control. It's a Four of Pentacles. It's trying to control things and hold on to things. There's two energies attached to it. And three, I'm sorry. It's protection, control, and holding on. So there's things that we're holding on to tightly that need to die, that we need to let go of. There are things that we're trying to control. We want to control. The more certainty, the more control that we feel that we have over things that enter our lives is the illusion of safety, right? Security. It's like, oh, well, as long as I'm in control and I try to control everything and control the outcomes, even if we're not consciously aware that we're doing it, that's going to bite us in the ass. Because you can't control love. Love is not a force to be controlled. Do you want to be controlled in love? No, of course not. Love is freedom. If you love something, you set it free. Love is the ultimate freedom. Control is fear and scarcity. Dominance. We're just trying not to get hurt is what control is. And so, and then the third energy is protection. And I'm not saying that there isn't a level of safety or precaution or just practicality in relationships. Like, you can't be stupid, obviously. You can't just go out and be like, oh my God, I met somebody and I'm not going to get to know them. I'm not going to ask them questions. I'm not going to try to understand who they are, what they're like. I'm not going to listen to my intuition. I'm just going to ignore the red flags. Like, I'm not saying to not be intelligent, to not be smart, or to not do your due diligence. I'm saying that when our number one priority is protection, control, like, then that's sending out an energetic vibration saying, hey, we need something to be protected from. So we're just going to attract things into our life that we actually need protection from, which is going to give our ego more feedback of going, see, this is why we have to protect ourselves at all costs. Because, you know, we keep having these experiences where things are coming at us that we need to protect ourselves from. And so protection is an extreme form, the type of protection that I'm talking about is an extreme form of self-preservation. So we need to learn how to become confident in ourselves and releasing ourselves from fear and trusting the confidence within us and the divine in us of knowing, like, hey, no matter what happens to me, I'm going to be absolutely okay. And like for me, for example, it's taken me 43 years. I'll be 44 in September. It's taken me 43 years to get to a place in my life where I know that I know that I know that I know of all the things I've gone through, multiple betrayals, loss, death. I've faced it all. Pretty much. Like, you know, the only thing that hasn't happened to me, fingers crossed, you know, I haven't had like a psycho try to come and kill me with a knife or something, you know, like I haven't had like a Sharon Stone in Basic Instinct, some murder, you know, some woman who's like, just, you know, seduces me and tries to murder me in the bed or something. But like all the other things, like I've had those experiences. And after 43 years of doing the work, I don't have a fear anymore. I don't fear betrayal. I don't fear loss. I don't fear, oh my God, what if I get hurt? What if this way? I'm not concerned with it because I've proven to myself by doing the work that I'm going to be okay no matter what. Come hell or high water, come near death experience. I've gone through that. You know, I was crushed in a car like a Coke can and was on life support, literally should be dead. My brain, you know, swelled up to the size of a watermelon. I should have mass amounts of brain damage, should be a vegetable, and I got nothing. On top of a whole other list of injuries that I could spew off to you, which isn't important. What is important is that there's a confidence that you can achieve within yourself of knowing that nothing can hurt you. And I'm not saying that, obviously if somebody came at me and, shot me with a gun, yeah, that would hurt. If I didn't die, or if I got cut. I'm not saying that you don't experience pain in the human body. I'm saying that regardless of what pain you experience in the human body or your emotions or anything, I'm saying that you have a confidence of knowing that you just can't be hurt. And that nothing can take anything from you anymore. Nothing can steal love from you. Which reminds me, again, for those of you who haven't, I mentioned it earlier in this video, go to my videos, go to my playlist, and look for the video called Love Didn't Hurt You, I think is what it's called. Go watch that video. If you believe that love can hurt you, go watch the video on my playlist that says Love Didn't Hurt You. It's a good one for you to watch. Okay, so let's move on down here to the next energy. These cards down here. So this card is called the Bard. Music, poetry, myth, history, the enchantment of storytelling. So this is about alchemizing energy. So what does that mean? Alchemy is just a fancy spiritual term for taking something that's in one form and turning it into another form. That's all that it is. That's literally it, right? It's like you take a bunch of ingredients out of your cupboards, and you can whip up a meal, right? It's like, I've got some of these things. Well, you're looking in your cupboard and you're like, what can I make for dinner? Because I don't want to go to the store. Like, what do I have in my refrigerator and in my cupboard? What could I make or create with what I have? And so you start you start looking through what you have, and each one of those things is independent of the other thing, right? So you're like, I got salt, I've got chicken, I've got marinara sauce, I've got noodles, I've got bread. You're looking at I've got cheese. You're looking at all the things. Well, those things are independent of one another until you merge them and create something new, right? It's the merging of all those ingredients together that creates a recipe or a dish, right? That's what alchemy is. And so this card here is about learning how to take energy, learning how to take pain, learning how to take discomfort, learning how to take sadness, learning how to take any type of disempowering or negative energy or thought and transform it into something that's powerful or empowering. And learning how to do it consciously. It's a skill that if you do it again and again and again and you get good at it, then eventually you'll be a master, and you'll have a set of tools available to you anytime you have a negative experience, which a lot of people basically live in constant states of negativity, which is why they have to take prescription medicines, why they have to drink, why they overeat, why they have to, zone out watching TV. The TV's got to be playing in the background all the time, or they're scrolling on their phone addictively. All the things that we do to medicate and escape. But there's healthier ways to transform that energy, because escaping it is not the same thing as transforming it. Alchemizing it is actually taking something and intentionally turning it into something that benefits you. It empowers you. It's an intentional act. It's not an accident. It's intentional. And so this is a very healing energy because it talks about music. It talks about poetry. It talks about expression. It talks about storytelling, right? And so it's basically finding ways, finding outlets where you can take any type of negative, disempowering, or powerless energy, powerless thinking, whatever it is, anything that's powerless, that's not helping you, and finding an avenue, a way for you to channel that energy. Can you channel it into poetry? Can you channel it into journaling? Can you channel it into singing? What's an empowering alternative for that energy? Just find anything. Is it sports? Is it something anything? Is it going to the gym? Right? Like, hey, why not look really good, make yourself look really good while getting all of that toxic energy out of your body? You're killing two birds with one stone, right? There's all kinds of ways for us to utilize and harness that energy that was negatively affecting us and transforming it into an empowering energy. That's what this energy is here. This card is about. Now, this next one is about risk. And this risk we talked about was tied here to the protection. Love is courage. Love is the most courageous thing that we'll ever do. You can have fear or you can have love, but you can't have both. You can get connection, but connection is not the same as love. You can get a connection from anything. You get a connection from eating, from smoking, from drugs, from masturbation, from sex. You can get a connection from watching a TV show. You can have a pet. We can get connection with drinking. We can get connection with all sorts of things, but it's superficial, and it's not the level of fulfillment that our soul longs for, because it lacks intimacy, and intimacy requires vulnerability, and vulnerability requires courage. Love is courage, because it requires two souls to be open to connect on the deepest level possible, and that requires a risk. And while love is the most risky thing that it will ever do, because it has the most potential to hurt us, it's also the most rewarding thing, because it has infinite possible ways to fulfill us, which is why we all seek it. If we're all truly honest with ourselves, deep, 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 deep down inside, we all want love. It's a fundamental need of the human existence, the fundamental need of our soul. So the next is communication. This energy has to do with all forms of communication. Now, sometimes people, and this is interesting, and I can say this because I help people in relationship coaching. And if I had a penny for every time that the person that I was helping was telling me about, they were giving me their list of complaints, either about their partner, like let's say they're married, here's the list of complaints about all the things that their partner does or doesn't do. And if they're not married, let's say they're single, but they're complaining about the opposite sex. So like, let's say if you're a woman, you're complaining, well, here are all my complaints about men. Men do this and they don't do that. Doesn't matter whether you're married, whether you're not married. 99% of the time, the very complaints that the person has about the other person are things that they have within themselves. It's like they're guilty of it. So when they say, oh, that person, they don't communicate, or they don't do this, they don't do that. It's like, well, but do you do it? And they might debate a little bit because they'll say, well, but I don't do that. I don't do it the way that they do it. And it's like, well, you're right. You may not do it the way that they do it, but it doesn't mean that you're doing it any better. Just because your way is different than somebody else's way doesn't mean that your way is more effective than their way. It's different. It's still not effective. It's just a different type of not effective. Right? It's like if you have a hammer and it's like this hammer sucks, it's not getting the job done, and you pull out a screwdriver and it's like the screwdriver sucks and it's not getting the job done either, then it doesn't matter whether it's the hammer or the screwdriver. They both are not getting the job done. So a lot of times, people will complain about things that they see the other person doing or not doing without realizing that they have the same issue. And so this communication, there's obviously multiple energies attached to it, but one of the energies attached to this communication card is about being aware of the double standards. The second is, do you communicate? In a very literal way. Do you communicate? How do you communicate? What do you communicate? What does it mean? Are you putting yourself in somebody else's shoes when you communicate? Are you trying to understand their experience of you You know what I mean? Because like we all want to. It's ironically, despite how much we've talked about, the mask and the prison energy and about how we beat ourselves up and we treat ourselves like pieces of shit and all this. Ironically, on the other side of the coin, it's interesting that despite how much we can beat ourselves up and how much self-loathing that we have towards ourselves, it's interesting how quick we are to defend ourselves when it comes to certain things. Like all of a sudden we'll run to our own defense in a hurry when it comes to something like, oh no, I know I communicate. I know that I do this and I do that. I know that I love them and I know that I did this and I did that. It's like, it's just interesting. It's fascinating how we live in this paradoxical existence of like, I hate myself. I'm a piece of shit. I'm not good enough and I have to hide and I don't want people to see me and I want my insecurities to be known and I have all this fear and doubt and uncertainty. But then, on the other hand, when somebody else, the other person says, hey, when you speak, when you talk to me or when you communicate with me or when you do this, when you do that, this is what it feels like. This is my experience of you. And then we're going to get defensive and be like, whoa, da, 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 da. And if defensiveness is always our first go-to instead of curiosity, that's a problem. Curiosity should always be the first go-to. It shouldn't just be defensiveness. It should be like, okay, well, let me think about that. Put yourself in the other person's shoes. Say, okay, well, I'm not you having an experience with me. I'm me. I only know me. I've been with me my whole life. I don't know what it's like to not be me. But I'm not you, and I don't know what it feels like to have the experience of me in your shoes. And I've had to learn this the hard way. Because as somebody who was deeply insecure, I was also deeply defensive. And again, that's that weird paradox thing. And so as I began to do my work and my personal growth, and I started to listen to the feedback I was getting from people that I was in relationships with who were all different. They didn't know each other. And yet, a lot of times, the same complaints would start to come up. And that's how you know you can't run and you can't hide. If you start hearing the same complaints come up from different people who don't know each other at different stages of your life, then to me, that's a point where you just have to own it and go, okay, obviously people have complained about this in my past and they're complaining, and the person that I'm with now, it's coming up again. So clearly I'm behaving or acting or interacting in a way that is having this effect. And it's not just, I can't just blame, I can't blame it on every person because they're all different. They're different people. It's something that I'm going to have to take responsibility for now. Okay. So that's one of the things here. Now, another energy here is we have, how are you communicating with yourself? Which goes back to the prisoner energy and that mask energy. Are you beating yourself up? Are you treating yourself like shit? Or are you speaking, life or death? There's life and death is in the power of the tongue. Are you speaking life over yourself? Are you speaking death over yourself? Very practical there. What are you communicating non-verbally? What are you communicating energetically? Are you sending out communication to the world around you saying, hey, I'm a piece of shit. Come show me that I'm a piece of shit because I think I'm a piece of shit. So come beat me up. Come dump on me. Come, betray me. Treat me like a toxic piece of crap. Like, what are you communicating to the universe, so to speak? What are you sending out energetically? Because whatever it is that you're sending out, whatever your vibrational frequency is communicating and sending out, that's what you're going to attract. We don't attract what we want. We attract who we are. So it might be very helpful to get, to be honest and become aware of what that energetic communication is that we're sending out, so we can change it. Because if we don't like the results that we're getting, then, we can do something about it. There's probably more in there, but I'm going to move on over here to the dog. It's interesting. I don't know how I did not see this until just now. We have the dog and we have the cat. We have opposites. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Interesting that we're having a talk about, this is a relationship video, and we have the opposites here. We have dogs and cats on the table, and I'm just now seeing it. This is how tunnel visioned I get. Like when the messages are coming through, it's like literally, I'm not even here. So the dog says loyalty, sincerity, and unconditional love. And the cat says independence and healthy boundaries. And so there's what I'm sensing here, besides the obvious, the irony of the metaphors of opposite sexes. Besides that, it's finding the healthy balance between those two extremes, right? Learning how to remain independent, but not hyper independent. It's just us knowing who we are on the cat side, having healthy boundaries and loving ourselves, and you being confident for you, and not necessarily needing somebody else or needing something to come in and complete you or fill in the holes or fill in a void, but you filling your own cup up. We can't give away what we don't have. And if you're not loving you, you're not filling you up, and you're not happy to be alive inside of you without anybody else around, then you're setting yourself up for a lot of chaos and hurt and pain when you put all of your emotional eggs and all of your emotional fulfillment in somebody's basket, because they're human, and humans are all flawed people. You and me, we're all flawed. And so even if that person is a good person and a decent person, an amazing person, even if they try to love you with every fiber of their being, it's still not going to be enough for you, because you need to be enough for you. And if they're not one of those types of people, then you're really going to hurt, because you put all of your fulfillment in their basket. And then what's going to happen when that basket's taken away? All your fulfillment's going to go with it. So we need to have an identity separate from anything and anyone else. We need to have an identity within ourselves. And ideally, a connection to the divine within us. And, once we're connected to the highest version of ourselves, our higher self within us, operating inside of us, and it's not an act of like, you arrive there. It's like, you have a spiritual awakening, you connect to the divine, and that's it. There's no more growth involved. No, it's an evolution, because you're dealing with something that's infinite. But it doesn't mean that there aren't fundamentals, that there's not a foundation that can be obtained, right? And we build on that foundation, and we go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. Like there's parts of me, because I know who I am now, those parts of me never changed. And so now I'm just building on that foundation of who I am and who I've become. I don't have to rediscover myself again and again and again and again and again. I know who the fuck that I am. And so now I'm just growing and evolving in the becoming of the next best version of me, and then the next best version of me, and then the next best version of me. And so I'm just laying those blocks. I'm laying those bricks, and I'm building and I'm building and I'm building and I'm growing, right? So yes, we need to have a healthy sense of independence, and we need to have a healthy sense of autonomy, and we need to have healthy boundaries. But then on the dog side, loyalty, sincerity, and unconditional love. We need to understand and have a healthy sense of that, right? And it's interesting because we need to avoid extremes. Just like over here on the cat side, we need to avoid extreme hyper independence, and we need to avoid extreme boundaries where we're just pushing away everything, right? Just like over here with the dog. We have to be careful what we give our loyalty to. Not everybody deserves loyalty, but also doesn't mean that we're we're complete skeptics and we have trust issues and we have, we got to make everybody jump through a bajillion hoops when, we're punishing people for the crimes committed by those in the past. That's not fair. We need to be reasonable. It's like, hey, like for me, whenever I meet somebody new, that person's got a clean slate. I'm not projecting the past onto them. I'm not going to punish them for things that people in the past did to me. They get a clean slate. They have an opportunity to show me who they are. And I will, I'll make my assessments based on the experience of who they show me that they are. And whoever that person is, will depend on how, how I need to show up in that relationship, what boundaries, what level of loyalty, all that kind of stuff, right? So loyalty, sincerity, and unconditional love. We have to know, while yes, there's the spiritual component of it, like to be unconditionally loving to the best of our ability, obviously, hopefully to be sincere and not be fake with the mask, and to be loyal, at least to ourselves first. At least be loyal to yourself first. Be sincere to yourself first. Be unconditionally loving to yourself first. Because again, we can't give away what we don't have. And then, as when somebody comes into our life, we give them an opportunity. We give them a clean slate. And it's like, hey, nice to meet you. And then as you learn who that person is, you give access. There's different levels of loyalty, right? Like you don't give the same level of loyalty to your best friend who you've known your entire life, or a family member that you love that you would, you could depend on, as to somebody you've only known for 3 weeks. Obviously. But maybe one day you end up getting married to that person. And then you end up having children with that person. And then that person that you only knew for 3 weeks becomes the love of your life. And now, they're as deeply in as you can get. They're in the most inner place of loyalty in your life. But not at the beginning, right? It's something that we work our way into. All right. So hopefully I feel like that has made sense. All right. So, moving along. All right, so the last 3 cards we have leadership here. We have timeline. We have medicine. And then over here at the bottom of the deck, we have emergence. So, leadership, the leadership energy here is the divine saying, any area of our life that we're not willing to take responsibility for, 100,000% responsibility for, is an area of our life where we will suffer. It's not a matter of if, we will suffer. So for example, if you're not taking responsibility for health in your life, that area of your life is going to suffer. It's not a matter of if, it's just, it will suffer. If you're not taking 100% responsibility for your finances, your financial status and situation in your life is going to suffer. If you're not taking personal responsibility for the pain, the trauma, the healing that needs to be done inside of your soul, then your emotional health is going to suffer. If you're not feeding your brain, you're not learning, you're not growing, and you're just checking out with like garbage TV or garbage TV shows and social media scrolling, and you're not, at least, somewhere getting some type of, you're teaching yourself, learning something, either reading a book or listening to a podcast, something to feed your mind in a healthy way, something that's going to like empower you, teach you, learn something, even if it's something out here in Tarot Land or a video like this, right? You're learning something that has the potential to empower you. Well, then that's obviously going to suffer. So, the same thing when it comes to relationships. Any part of a relationship that you're unwilling to take responsibility for, that area of the relationship is going to suffer. And there's lots of areas. Like if I was to break this down into a wide list of things, which I've actually done in my book, Might as well show it. It's available on Amazon. You can purchase it on Amazon. It's available on Kindle. This is the hardback, and then there's a paperback. I'm working on eventually getting it on Audible. But, this is a hefty book. It's like almost 420 pages of everything that you'll ever need to know about relationships. Everything, anything. This is the Holy Bible of anything you need to know in relationships. And I'm not just saying that because I wrote it. I'm saying it because I've obsessed over relationships for like 12 years. I read all the books. I've taken, God only knows how many courses and classes, and I probably spent well over thousands of hours and over probably easily $100,000 in just me obsessing over relationships, because that's how painful my divorce was. And so I took responsibility. The reason I'm sharing this with you is I took responsibility for the fact that my relationship, my marriage didn't end just because my ex-wife decided to wake up one day and just run off with my best friend of 17 years. That's not how it works. That's not how she works. That's not how women work. That's not how cheating works in most cases. Some people do. Some people are predisposed to cheating. It's just, and there's other reasons that they behave that way, but she wasn't one of them. She didn't feel safe, seen, heard, and understood, and she felt invalidated by me for a very long time. But I didn't know what I didn't know. She didn't know what she didn't know. And I was young and I was dumb and I was stupid. I didn't have this. I didn't have this knowledge. And if I'd had this knowledge, I probably wouldn't be divorced. So, I wanted to make sure that, to the best of my ability, I would never have to go through another divorce. So thankfully, I have not been remarried since. It's been a long time, but I've not been remarried since. And I took responsibility, and I still take responsibility for that area of my life. I don't take it for granted. I don't assume that I know all that I need to know. I'm taking responsibility for it because I don't want that area of my life to suffer. Now, are there other areas of my life that need more work? Yes. But to the best of my ability, I try to take responsibility for all areas of my life. When it comes to my work, when it comes to paying my bills, when it comes to not being in debt, when it comes to shaping and creating a life where what works for me, I know that I'm taking responsibility for each one of these areas. Some are more prosperous than others. Some are growing better than others. It's just, there's everything's a work in progress. But the point is, any area of your life that you're not taking responsibility for is an area that's going to suffer. And if you're not sure what areas those are, then, find books. Just like, again, for relationships, there's anything that you would ever need to know that you need to take responsibility for is in this book. All the things having to do with relationships, any challenges, anything you need to know is in here. And even if you just went, kind of yes and kind of no. I was going to say, even if you just went in and looked at the table of contents, you could kind of skim down and go, well, am I taking responsibility for this and for that? But the reason it's probably, you won't be able to do that with my book is because, I made the headings, I made the titles of the chapters unique on purpose because I know what people do. They get a book and they'll go and they'll look at the table of content and then they'll go, oh, I know that. That's what the ego does. You'll start reading down the table of contents and you'll be like, oh, but I already know that. Then you put the book down. So I tried to come up with unique titles to the chapters to kind of, so that, you wouldn't necessarily know what I'm talking about unless you go and read it. And it's not because I want you to, to just read bullshit. It's because what you need to know is in the book, and only what you need to know. There's no extra, there's no fluff, it's just literally like a guide. Like let's talk about this thing. This is what you do. This is what you don't do. Next thing. This is what you do. This is what you don't do. Oh, you have in this thing. This is what you do. This is what you don't do. So it's certainly not a, it's not a New York Times bestseller. It's not one of those types of books, because I'm not here. The purpose of me writing that book was not about, creating a story per se. It was more about just giving the knowledge to people who need the knowledge to know how to troubleshoot and how to get a result, right? Anyways, so leadership. Point is, all of that to say, the point of leadership, the leadership energy here, is about us taking responsibility for all areas of our lives, especially when it comes to relationships, so that we can get and move towards the result that we're after. And if we're not willing to take responsibility, if you're just going to, hey, I'm just going to go do the same thing I've always done, well, then you're going to keep getting the same result. The definition of insanity, doing the same thing, expecting a different result. So the divine is saying, hey, it's up to you. You have to become the leader of your own life. You have to step into the power of the magician. You have to be responsible for all of you. Every thought, every decision, every action. And yes, even have to take responsibility for the things that we can't control, that we have to go through. There's lots of things that we go through in life that we can't control. I didn't ask to be hit by a drunk driver. I certainly didn't ask for my girlfriend and her sister to die. That was done to me. It was an unfortunate thing that occurred and happened to me that I didn't ask for. And so I couldn't control the drunk driver crashing into my car, or the car that I was in rather, but I can control the human being that I have become as a result of the experience that I've had, which I took responsibility for that part of my life, so that I'm not defined by that terrible experience. I'm not defined by my divorce and the 9 months of hell that I went through that I talked about earlier. I'm not defined by my past betrayals and disappointments and the lies and the deception and the ways that I've been hurt in relationships. And I've not been a saint either, by the way. It's not just been other people. I've done, we're all the hero in one part of the story, and we're all the villain in somebody else's story. I've hurt women. I've broken hearts. So, I'm not here to say that I haven't broken somebody's heart out there. So there's I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 women out there somewhere who, they view me as the devil. I was the asshole. I was the piece of shit. And so, but, I don't define myself by that either, or the ways that I didn't show up, whether it was my ex-wife or somebody else. I'm taking responsibility for my life in everything that I do and everything that happens to me. And again, I'm alchemizing it, like we talked about earlier. Alchemizing it, transforming that in all energies, transforming all experiences and all energies into an empowering force that serves me for my highest good. That's the key, which is the medicine. Okay, I'm skipping over the timeline to the medicine. That's what the medicine is. The medicine is we, as a result of us taking responsibility and putting in the work, we become our own healers. And I'm not saying that we do it by ourselves per se. I certainly haven't healed all by myself. I spent thousands of dollars, in personal growth and personal development, transformation, seminars, books, podcasts, but I was hungry. I spent that money on purpose. And sometimes it was hard. Sometimes it's hard when you don't have an extra $3,000 laying around and you're like, I'll figure it out. Because my happiness, my fulfillment is worth more than $3,000, especially when we could all die tomorrow. I've been there. I've been the drunk driving statistic. I know what it's like to actually literally be that one in however many millions of people of, you could get struck by lightning and die. It's like, yeah, I was that guy. So, I have a very sober reality with the fact that you can't take anything for granted in life. And it's like, hey, you know what? Money comes and goes. Debt comes and goes. And I would rather, if I was going to put myself in debt, at least, within a reasonable, not astronomical debt, but if I was going to, go into debt a little bit, then it certainly would be for something that's going to add eternal value to me. And that's just a rule that I have with myself. If I'm going to spend, over between $300 and $500 on something, whatever that thing is going to add, eternal value to me in some way, shape, or form. Like, it's going to serve a really high purpose, and then anything under like $300, it's not a big deal, because I'm not putting myself in debt below, but thousands of dollars. I mean, I spent $25,000 for a year-long personal development course and thing. And so my point in saying this is that the value of anything is the amount of life you're willing to exchange for it. And if you want something bad enough, you'll take ownership and you'll step into that leadership role to go after it, and you'll do whatever it takes to heal the parts of ourselves or yourself, or to gain the knowledge, or acquire the gifts, acquire the skills, whatever's missing to have it. That's just the hardcore reality of it. Unfortunately, there's too many people who've bought into the lie and the belief that you can get something for doing nothing. You want the six pack, but you don't want to sweat and you don't want to eat the broccoli, right? Everybody wants to be $1 million. Nobody wants to invest the money. Nobody wants to start a business. Nobody wants to take a risk. That's the thing. We all want something, but we don't want to have to put forth the blood, sweat, and tears and the effort of the value of the thing that we're seeking. We just want it handed to us. And that's not how life is. That's not how it works. You are rewarded for what you value. You are rewarded for the person that you become. You are rewarded for what you're willing to take responsibility for. With great power comes great responsibility. Well, you are your greatest power. Therefore, you are your greatest responsibility, and nothing is more valuable than you. You are the most valuable resource that you have, and there's only one of you. And if you can't find enough value within yourself for you to become your best investment, then anything else that you're banking on, or you're searching for, you're longing for, you're looking for, you're craving, you're desiring, is bullshit. And I promise you, and I'm not saying this to be Debbie Downer, but I promise you, you will be disappointed, and you will be very unhappy, and you'll be very unfulfilled. The two most valuable resources that we all have that we cannot reproduce is time and energy. When today is gone, we're not getting it back. You're not getting any younger. I'm not getting any younger. We only have so much energy. You're all going to go to sleep tonight. We're all going to wake up, and we're going to have a limited amount of energy to get through the day, to do all the things before we get tired. We're going to go back to sleep. But then we've lost another day. So with the finite amount of time and energy that we have, what are you going to invest in? What are you going to do with it? And how many years do you want to spend doing the same thing and not experiencing the life that you could have? And so this is how we start. We start by taking responsibility for ourselves and becoming the leader of our own lives, and doing the work and investing the time, money, energy, resources, and sparing no expense where necessary. I'm not saying to be crazy or illogical, but I am saying that maybe to some level of discomfort. And I've done this at least three or five times that I can think of in the last 10 years, where I made uncomfortable financial decisions, where in that moment, it was an investment. More than $1,000, all the way up to $25,000, all the way up to the point where I'm like, oh my God, in order to pay for this, and I couldn't pay for it all, but to pay for half of it, I had to go into my 401k. So I took out half my 401k or whatever. I forget how much they would only let me take out so much to pay for this $25,000 personal development, program. But I've made other investments that were uncomfortable. That one was just the most uncomfortable. Like, I've never, I've purchased a new car before. That's probably the closest thing to a $25,000 investment, but you don't have to pay for it all up front. So, but in hindsight, those steps of faith, the discomfort of taking those steps, those investments I made in myself, they have been rewarded tenfold. So you will get all of that back and more. The value will exceed any amount of money or debt because money comes and goes. But you can't get time back and you can't get the energy back. When today's gone, you're not getting it back. The energy that you used today, you're not getting that back. You'll get you'll get renewed energy tomorrow to help you get through tomorrow. But what will your tomorrow be? What will your tomorrow look like? Will your tomorrow be spent longing, waiting, hoping, wishing that something will be different? Or will your tomorrow be about, no, I'm going to make it different. I'm going to make it different. I'm going to start chipping away at something. I'm going to start taking responsibility for something. I'm going to make a different decision. I'm going to take a different route. I'm going to make a new choice. I'm going to take a different action. I'm going to challenge myself. I'm going to embrace discomfort. Whatever I have to do, I'm going to work on something. Whatever that looks like, all of that I said is tied to this medicine energy. Now, lastly, we have this timeline. The divine is simply saying that it's up to you. Some of you are like, when's it going to happen? When's love going to happen? When am I going to find my person? The divine is saying it's up to you. You're the one who controls, for the most part, 90 to 95% of it is in our hands. Now, are there moments of serendipity? Do we have soul contracts and fated events and fated destiny and divine appointments and divine interventions? Yes, of course. So I'm not going to say that you'll never run into somebody that, you were fated to meet because maybe you had a soul contract with them. But assuming that you're not wanting to just wait around, crossing your fingers, hoping maybe you have somebody out there that you're fated to meet. Maybe you don't. We don't know. You don't know. So, assuming that if you want love right now, assuming that you want love soon, assuming that you want to have a relationship, a loving, passionate, fulfilling, loyal, whatever your dream relationship looks like, assuming that you want that now, the divine is saying the timeline is in your hands and my hands. We're the ones who control destiny more than any other force. And so the more that we're willing to invest in ourselves and invest in this will determine the timeline of when all of that manifests in our lives. So this went much longer than I anticipated. I honestly, I promise you, I tried my best to make this more condensed, but for those who really, 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 really need to hear this, and for those that are willing to do this, take responsibility, then that's who this message was for. And for those of you who checked out, obviously, if you checked out and you clicked off obviously you're not here to hear me say this because you're not here anymore. You quit the video a long time ago. But for those of you that are still here, I applaud you for making it all the way to the end of this video, because that alone shows that this matters enough to you, that you value this enough to hear everything that the divine wants to say to you through this. You're willing to absorb it all. You're willing to trade your time to hear this message to get what you need to get from it. Whereas other people, they don't have the attention span. They got to click off or whatever they're doing. It's like, well, their results in life are predictable. And probably whatever's going to happen is probably predictable as well. And I'm not saying that to be an asshole or be mean. It's just, it is what it is. And so, for those of you that have stuck around, I applaud you. And I applaud, anyone that's willing to be the leader of their life and do the work. So, hopefully, you found value in this reading. If you haven't, please, while I have your attention still, hit the like button for me. If you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing to the channel. Hit the bell notification icon. Come hang out the next time I go live. Get a free live tarot reading. And if you would like a personal or private reading, the information for all that is in the description box below. Don't let 2025 just be another year. Anything, invest in anything. What do you have? You have $10? Can you buy a book? Like whatever. You'd be surprised what just any type of change, it doesn't even have to require money, right? Just don't let 2025 pass you by when you have a chance here and now and every day forward to just move the needle just a little bit. And, inches become feet, feet become miles. So it doesn't have to be radical, all changed overnight. But one step at a time, you'd be surprised how far you can go. So hopefully this reading has provided value for all of you. I appreciate you guys, and I will see you all soon. Hey guys, thank you so much for checking out this video. If you haven't already, please like, share, subscribe to the channel. All the other information is in the description box below. And as always, my friends,
I'm not a bloody psychic.